So here we have a BMW 3 GT in the F series, and common problem is the amplifier is down there. We've taken it out, took all the collection. It was full of water down there. You got your two drainage holes, and for some reason it was full of water, and I thought it was the rubber on the car, but we've poured loads of water down and we've discovered that it comes into the corner and it keeps filling up and filling up and filling up. And I couldn't think where it was coming from. When you take the back light off, you actually have this hole here, so it screws into there and there, and then there's like a little plastic nubbin bit there with this bit of sponge, and that bit of sponge goes into the hole, but the sponge is waterproof. So we've then poured water into that hole and down here into the drainage channel, and as soon as it goes in that hole, it comes all the way down into here and it seeps into the seam where the amplifier sits, and that's where you get your notification in the car to say no warning tones, and you can't have your radio, your Bluetooth doesn't work. So that's where it is, and I think that's the problem solved. So it's going to have to be clear silicone and a rubber washer maybe, and just try and get that watertight and then put it all back together. It's been an absolute nightmare, but that's probably what it is, because there's a lot of models which have the same problem, and I wonder if it's this poor seal here behind the light pod. So the amp is reinstated, it's put in there, that piece then goes back up there, but we found out that this 40 amp fuse is blown, and your fuse box is in the boot underneath this little thing, and it was next to this green one in there, which according to BMW is unused, but it's a 40 amp. We've got my little labels thing there, but that didn't really help out to go online. So that one there is a 40 amp fuse, sits in there, and it's blown. So I wonder when the water got in through that hole behind the light, it's blown that fuse with the amp in there, with the water in the bottom. Hopefully that fixes it. So now we need to get a 40 amp fuse. So I've sealed that one, and there's the amplifier in place. Unfortunately the amplifier doesn't work anymore, so that's going to need replacing the BMW, but it's bone dry in here, which is good. However, in the battery compartment there's water. I can't really see it, but water is still getting down, so I'm going to have to take off this whole piece again, this black plastic piece. There's these two little poppers that come off. Probably going to have to use my little tool, and then silicone again. I'll do a step-by-step video on that. I also noticed that when the water got into the amplifier, it blew the fuse. The fuse box is in here, and it was that orange one there, this 40 amp fuse, which I've replaced at Halifax. It was like £1.60, but that had blown, so I put a new one of them in, and we can see that was the one that had blown, 40 amp, so that needs replaced as well. So both of those are out. There were little things there, they just pop out with that tool off eBay, and we can see, take this off, it just slides off, and put that to one side, and you've got all the shit in there which is blocking the drainage channel anyway, and then the water comes running down here and behind this nut here there's that little sponge thing. So it's the same on the other side, and that's where the water gets in and absorbs it, and that sponge comes down into this channel inside the bodywork, and then it comes into the corner right the way down into the battery there, and it seeps through. So I need a 10mm spanner to take those two off, and then the light pod just pulls towards you, and there's like a little nubbin inside there, like a male piece which goes into the female piece. So that's the light loose. You've got to really pull it towards you to get it off, and there's that little male piece there that sticks into that hole. So you've got to give it a good yank to get it out, and then it's got one connector which you can just unclip on there, and that gets the light pod off. So that's the light pod off. You can see there's that hole again where all the water gets in, and all that is that sponge there, that there, which absorbs all the water. And you'd think BMW would put some kind of a rubber washer on there or something, but that's where the water gets in. So the plan is now clean it up, put a rubber washer on there with loads of clear silicone, and then clear silicone around the hole, and then stick it all together, and hopefully that's that done. It should be the same as the other side. And just do the reverse, put all of your light pod back. So that's it, I've had the light pod off, it's back in, tightened up the nuts, and it's that area there, covered it in clear silicone, some Gorilla silicone stuff. I used these little stirrers from IKEA, they're so handy. Just rubbed it all in and covered that with silicone. Next step is just to finally put that piece back on, and then I need to go to BMW and get a new amplifier. So check your boots, shine the light down in these corners. This is the GT model, 3GT on a 17 plate, the F34 series, and I've heard a lot of problems with other models have got the same thing, where this gets filled up with water and it fries the amplifier. Very frustrating, poor design on BMW. I did think it was coming off the rubbers into the boot, because whenever you lift the boot up, the rainwater drips off the edge of the spoiler here down into the boot a little bit, but that's not it. A few people have said that there's a drainage hole under here for the I don't know whether that's one, for the actual active spoiler, and people are saying that that is where the water comes in down to here and then into the boot, but it doesn't, because all of the trim, all of the soft trim, which is I've taken out at the minute, that was bone dry, and the water gets in beneath that, which I think, looking on forums and stuff, no one's actually found it, but I've managed to find it, so hopefully this helps a few people. It's that hole there behind the light pod, and I presume it'll be the same on other models, so there you go. Just as a final finisher about the design process of this, which is stupid, is obviously the rainwater's coming down the channel over here, which I think those are watertight, and that's what those little things go into. They pop into there through that there, but stupidly the rainwater, it obviously drains down into that hole there underneath, which is fair enough, and then out down the bottom. But as you can see, as it's coming down, it's coming over all this, which is watertight, fair enough, but then it's hitting that nut there, which is fine, that's waterproof, because there's a welded on threaded male nut comes through there, sorry, male like bolt comes through, and then it passes this hole behind here, which has just got a sponge in it, and like a cross-shaped male nubbin thing, so that's where the water's just draining. It's just mad that they would put a hole there and not put just a rubber washer on or something, or just a slightly different design. And it's obviously both of these sides are internally, there's like that, you can't see it in there, but obviously down into this little piece here, this cavity, and it just sits down the bottom like a reservoir, because the water was actually down in the amplifier corner, like right down in here. It was actually rising, the water was coming up, and it was bone dry, wiping it, and then it was actually rising and rising, so it's obviously fills in like a little cavity down there, and that's that. So hopefully that's of some help to some BMW owners. Check your boots, look for your amplifier, because I've heard that I'm booked in another 3 weeks time for an amplifier, and that's going to probably be best part of £1,000. So I've heard there's one company that repairs them, and they're situated in Romania, so I'm not prepared to send the amplifier all the way to Romania, so very frustrating. Poor design from BMW, but never mind.